Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be discussing the top transfers going into double game week 29. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to really climb through those ranks and capitalize on these double game weeks, and in particular those players that are going to perform the best. And we're going to cover all of that in this video. So if you are new around here, make sure you do consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the video, please do consider hitting that thumbs up. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. So first up, we're going to be looking at those defenders that I really think you guys should be looking to target. And in particular, Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell are ones that I really think we need to have on our radars. Now, as a reminder, these are defenders that have a double game week. So for Luke Shaw, he has a double game week away against Newcastle and at home against Brentford. And Ben Chilwell has a home fixture against Villa and a home fixture against Liverpool. Now, a lot of the FPL market are moving towards these kinds of defenders and selling their Arsenal defenders. So I quickly want to cover that one off. Arsenal have a home fixture against Leeds, and then after that, a few tricky fixtures. And I really do think if you are looking to be a little bit different and fully capitalise on the double game week, I do think moving away from an Arsenal defender to one of these sorts of defenders is a good use of your free transfer. If it is a points hit, then it starts to become a bit more difficult to whether decide it is worthwhile or not. Because I do anticipate Arsenal to have a potential of a clean sheet against that Leeds team. But these are the two that I'm focusing on right now. And the stats that you can see on your screen here are based on post-World Cup. So game week 17 up until game week 28, based on per 90 minutes. Now, of course, Luke Shaw has played many more minutes than Ben Chilwell over this period. So make sure you do take that as a consideration when we are looking at these underlying stats. But Luke Shaw being 0.8 million cheaper than Ben Chilwell. But Ben Chilwell is certainly the one that offers that attacking threat that we know he can have in this Chelsea formation now that it reverted back to a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 formation. 0.1 XG per 90 over this period is good reading for someone like Ben Chilwell, but it's worth noting Luke Shaw at 0.06 isn't too far away from Ben Chilwell, and the expected assists on both are exactly the same at 0.1 per 90. Now, one stat that I did want to cover off is the shots in the box per 90s. I do think that is a good indication to identify where the players are picking up their positions. Shaw averaging 0.25 shots in the box per 90, but Ben Chilwell 0.79. So really good reading and emphasising on the fact that he is the one expected to get in the box for this Chelsea attack. And it's also worth noting as well, another string to defenders' bows that is worth considering is corners. Now, corners per 90 minutes, Shaw is averaging 1.53. Chilwell 4.33, so he is the predominant corner taker while he is in the starting 11, and I really think that is an important factor to consider when we are looking at these defensive options to us. Now, based on the actual double game week alone, I actually don't really like either from a defensive perspective. We need to remember that Man United are going to be without Casemiro over this double game week. And away against Newcastle is a very difficult fixture. And then at home against Brentford, who is a team that have picked up points on the road against some of the big teams. Man City is a perfect example of that. So I don't necessarily think a clean sheet is a guarantee for these players. And in particular, Ben Chilwell. Aston Villa have scored, I believe, in their last 14 games. So they are on a real hot streak right now. And Liverpool, we know, do turn up in these big games. And with the likes of Darwin Núñez, Salah, Jota, I do anticipate them to be an attacking threat against Chelsea. So looking at the fixtures alone, I do think it is worth bringing in these players for the double game week. But from a clean sheet perspective, I don't necessarily think you are looking at a guaranteed clean sheet for either team. Now, one thing I also want you guys to acknowledge when we are bringing in our transfers is we're not looking at such a short-term move. I really think both of these can be long-term holds if you want them to be. But the thing that's making me start to favour towards Luke Shaw is not only that his price is cheaper, but also he does have a double game week to be rearranged later down the line, which is going to be at home against Brighton. So the fixtures coming up for them are good. Double in 29, home against Everton in 30, and away against Nottingham Forest in 31. And they will have a double game week later on in the season. So as a long-term perspective, I do prefer the fixtures that Man United have, whereas Chelsea away against Wolves under Lopetegui can be a tricky game, and then against at home against a free scoring Brighton team, I don't think that's necessarily a clean sheet on the cards at all. Now, the last thing I want you to consider is also the European commitments that both of these teams have. Man United will have a Europa League fixture before and after the Nottingham Forest fixture. Could there be rotation there for Luke Shaw? Potentially. And the same can be said for Ben Chilwell, probably even more on Ben Chilwell's side of things. He will have the first leg against Real Madrid before Brighton and the second leg after the Brighton game. So that game in particular could be rotation central for Ben Chilwell, and we know the likes of Cucurella can be deployed as a left wing back. So to conclude the Shaw versus Chilwell debate, I do fancy Luke Shaw as a longer term move. I think if I was looking at attacking returns, Chilwell is the way to go. And I do think he is the one that has the highest ceiling. But as a long-term move and giving you money in the bank, I think Luke Shaw is a really nice placeholder for you to bring into your team in place of an Arsenal defender and look to hold him potentially between now and the end of the season. But again, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. It'd be really interesting to know which one you'd be favouring, or is there another defender that you think is worth considering as part of our transfer strategy for Game Week 29. So guys, next up we're going to be looking at a single midfielder that I think is up there as one of the best options for double Game Week 29. And that man is going to be Bruno Fernandes. No surprises here, as he is naturally always the talk of the town when it comes to double game weeks, as he does have history in the past of delivering those double-digit hauls, which is everything we are after when we are making our transfers. Now, first things first with Bruno Fernandes, a minutes machine. This guy, I think I saw a stat going around where he's played something like the most minutes of any outfield player in the top 5 divisions. He will play every game, no questions asked. I don't think Ten Hag will rest him at any point, even though, as I said, they do have the Europa League fixtures either side of the Nottingham Forest games. I just think with Casemiro out, it puts even more emphasis on Bruno Fernandes being that leader in the midfield there. And as I said, when we are considering Man United options, we're not only looking them for the double game week, but we're also considering them as a long-term hold. And at 9.6 million, it is a position where it does bring a lot of debate in the FPL community, because it is in that really awkward price bracket where he isn't considered a top-tier premium like Salah, like De Bruyne, but he's also not in that favourable price bracket of the 8 millions like Maddison, Kulusevski, Saka's, for example. So it's very difficult to identify whether Fernandes is good value, because I can name quite a few other midfielders that offer better value than him. But similar to the defenders that we were considering, I do think with a lot of managers out there with triple Arsenal, a lot of them are considering selling their Odegaards, Martinellis or Saka with a single game week to start to bring in the likes of Bruno Fernandes. And he is certainly one of the popular transfers, being 5th most transferred in player at the time of recording. So I really do think Bruno Fernandes is a great consideration for our teams. And again, the stats on the screen here you can see are post-World Cup. So game week 17 to game week 28. And again, this is really good for us to draw up some conclusions on Bruno Fernandes, as he's played a lot of minutes over this period. XG per 90, 0.23. But importantly, he has become much more of a chance creator in this Man United team at 0.48 expected assists per 90. And big chances created per 90 at 0.92. So really solid underlying numbers and really well-rounded. And it's also worth noting that he can also have penalties in his armoury. We still don't know exactly which one is going to be the penalty taker in this Man United team, whether it is Marcus Rashford or it is Bruno Fernandes. But it's definitely something to consider going forward. Now, I think because a lot of managers are bringing him into their teams this game week, we naturally think that the ownership of Bruno Fernandes is through the roof, but he's actually only 9.1% owned in live teams at the time of recording. Now, of course, I am anticipating that ownership to actually increase over the next week before the deadline, but I still think Bruno Fernandes is a really nice differential move if you are in a position where your rank is not where you're happy to be. This isn't just a move for those protecting rank. I also think it's definitely a move that can be beneficial to your rank if he was to kick on. Now, as I said about the fixtures, away against Newcastle, at home against Brentford isn't the most favourable fixtures, but I do think from an attacking perspective, there are opportunities there. And against Everton and Nottingham Forest, I really do think he could double down with his returns over that period. Now, the big factor is defensively with Casemiro out, Man United are worse. Offensively without Casemiro, it is still quite tough to understand the positioning of Bruno Fernandes. We've seen him deployed on the right side from time to time with a double pivot of Sabitzer and Fred. We've seen Fernandes operating as a 10. We've seen him operate as an 8. So there has been a lot of variety in Bruno Fernandes' positions, but what we have seen is that he is getting into some advanced positions in the Man United team, no matter what position he is taking up. And I still think he is the go-to midfielder in Game Week 29 if you can afford him. I still think Maddison is a great alternative in that Leicester team at a cheaper price, and I definitely don't think managers should be disregarding Maddison as an option. But I think if you had the money available, because of the double game week and the fixtures going forward, knowing that he is a minutes monster, he is a brilliant transfer in for FPL managers. He's currently the 8th best predicted points for game week 29 for midfielders, and the 5th best predicted points between game weeks 29 and game weeks 30 at 16.5. So I think he could be absolutely on our radar. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. I'd be really interested to know on Bruno Fernandes. So last up, we are going to be discussing some double game week forwards that is a real nice balance of the boring safe pick, but also the high chasing upside pick. And of course, I am talking about Watkins as the quote unquote boring FPL option, and Isak at Newcastle as the, I would say, the one that everybody is wanting to go to, the new shiny toy in FPL. So first up, let's focus on Isak. Of course, he has started to come onto the menu from an FPL perspective. He has started 4 of the last 5 league matches. He has scored 3 goals in his last 2 league games, with 2 of them coming in that Nottingham Forest away fixture and 1 coming in their home game against Wolves. So it is worth noting the last 2 fixtures he scored in, I would argue, are probably more of the easier games on paper, but it doesn't change the fact that he is still getting on the score sheet, and his minutes have been pretty solid over that period. Now, looking at his underlying numbers here and on the screen that you can see, based on his post-World Cup figures, XG per 90, 0.73, really good reading, and XA, 0.07. So he definitely isn't necessarily going to be a chance creator. He is very much the pinpoint and the focal point of this Newcastle attack, which of course, when we are considering FPL options, we want to have those selfish FPL forwards. And it does look like he could be that kind of player, being on penalties as well, which we did see in that Nottingham Forest fixture. A big chances per 90 at 0.95 is really solid reading, and kind of concludes the fact that he is the one that is getting into his positions in that Newcastle lineup. Now, the big thing that I do like about Newcastle as well in the longer term is that they do have a potential double game week lined up. Now, I don't know when that's going to be, whether it's game week 31, game week 34, game week 37. But if some managers out there are potentially looking at a forward for the longer term, then I do think Isak offers a really interesting position for managers, as he could have that double game week slotted in game week 31, and suddenly you're getting yourself a double, a single, and then a double. Then that becomes really, really desirable as an FPL option. And it's also worth noting as well in regards to Isak, his numbers against Watkins are looking really good, because as I said, with Watkins, he's very much been the player that a lot of managers have felt they had to go to, because his numbers have been very, very good and his minutes have been so fantastic in this Aston Villa team. XG per 90, 0.52, very, very good reading, and 0.1 XA. And his big chances, again, we've seen the touch sheet maps in previous videos. He is the one really far up in the Aston Villa team. He's not playing deep like previous times. He's not the one running the channels like we have seen when he played alongside Danny Ings. He is the focal point in that Aston Villa team. So we definitely are getting the talisman of Aston Villa and of Newcastle right now. But I would argue that the minutes are going to be a lot more secure in Watkins' favour rather than Alexander Isak. Now, on top of the underlying numbers that you can see on your screen here, I also wanted to point out that shots in the box per 90 over game week 17 to 28, 3.56 per 90 for Isak, 2.67 for Watkins. So both really good reading. Just Isak is leading the way in that department, if that was something that you do consider when you are looking at your forwards. And live ownership right now, based on the time of recording, Isak is at 4.5%. So if you're looking for that differential, Isak is definitely the route to go for. Watkins currently at 27.9. So he's definitely more of the favourable pick in the FPL market. And if you're looking for that real upside chase, I think Isak is the one to go for. Now, looking at the numbers for Watkins, Ollie Watkins, the predicted points, 8 predicted points in game week 29 is actually the second highest of all forwards for that game week. And over the next 3 game weeks, he's predicted to score 17.3, which is the third highest for all forwards. So to kind of conclude on this situation, guys, I really do think that Isak's price is the thing that makes me really interested in him. Being 6.7 million, similar to the discussion we had about Shaw versus Chilwell, I think if they were both priced the same, Watkins is absolutely the one to go for. His fixtures are good. Home fixture against Forest in game week 30, which is really favourable. And as I mentioned, Aston Villa have scored in their last 14 league matches, I believe. So they are really in form when it comes to goal scoring. And Watkins, I would fancy him to be in amongst it if they are going to have success over this double game week period. But if you are chasing that high upside pick, I think Alexander Isak definitely needs to be in your thoughts. The double, while it isn't great, I do still fancy them to be an attacking threat against Man United and away against a West Ham team who are fighting for their lives. Brentford away a difficult fixture and Villa away a difficult fixture. But with this Newcastle team having a double game week later on in the season, Isak could be that interesting move that you could go for, that joker in the pack that could propel you up those ranks if he does maintain those minutes. If I had to choose one, I probably still would be that boring manager and favour Ollie Watkins just because you know you're getting those guaranteed minutes and the numbers are still really, really solid in his favour. So guys, that's going to wrap up today's double game week 29 top transfers video. I really hope it has provided some value for everyone that is considering their transfers. Again, I wouldn't be making any early transfers. I would wait until next week once the international games have played to see if that is going to affect any of your transfer plans going forward. So all that leaves me to say is have a fantastic week, guys. I will see you in the next video. And if you can drop a like and hit that subscribe button, it would be massively appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.